Good day, everybody. Welcome back to our Amplify sessions, where we are spending some time with Graham Power, with him sharing a bit about his, personal life. And today we want to ask a couple of questions around his holistic well-being. Welcome back, Graham. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Greg. Always a joy, and I'm actually humbled that you should feel that my bit of, comments and experiences could be of some value to others out there. Thank you.
I think it was Maxwell who said that none of us are as smart as all of us. So it's really, really great just getting some input from you. I've certainly learned a lot, and I truly believe that all our listeners, everybody listening, has learned something, a thing or two, just from hearing your stories from your life. And the first question that we have for you today is that, running a business can come with a lot of stress and a lot of burdens. How does one keep, your well-being, your holistic well-being when it comes to emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being?
Yeah, COVID has been a stressful time. I've seen people that have been on the brink of wanting to commit suicide. I've prayed with a few friends that went through that experience. So things can be tough out there, especially when the economy is in the kind of times that we are in right now. Unemployment, people lose their work. We ourselves have been through a bit of a restructure, and after 37 years in business, to have to lay off almost 200 people, 20% of our permanent workforce, was tough. And these stresses really get to one. And I want to say to you, if it were not for my spiritual life and having the anchor of being able to go to God daily in quiet time, I hate to think where I would have been. Because I've just seen so many people that have, some of them have ended up in having to be admitted into a clinic for, because of the stress. And many people are on some form of tranquilizer or some kind of sleeping tablet because of just not being able to put your head down and be at peace. And it happens to lots of people, those of faith and those without faith. People without faith, I think, have a great disadvantage in that they are going through all of these traumas, and then how do they come to lay it down? How do they make peace with the scenario and have the trust and the belief that tomorrow and next week and that we will get through this? I'm reminded of a little story about a father that sent his 4 sons a long distance to go and observe a tree. And it was a fruit tree. And the one went there in winter, got there, and the tree was all buckled and bent and bare. And the next one went, and there was some budding flowers. It was spring. And the other one went there in summer, and there this was with his fruit that was all ripe and ready and so forth. And the question is, what season are you and I in right now? Because we will go through these different seasons, and there will be the ups and there will be the downs. We've spoken before, my view that for every up there's a down, for every down there's an up. So there's never been a drought which hasn't been broken. Right now I'm rejoicing and giving thanks because our dams in Cape Town are overflowing, 100% full. Whereas 2.5 years ago, we had a scenario where we had the worst drought in Cape Town in over 100 years. So these things change. Farmers were down and out. Today they are rejoicing. They're having a bumper season. So the stress levels will come, and every one of us will go through these different seasons. And no matter how successful you are in business, family, whatever, you will go through tougher times and easier times. And what are the lessons? And you mentioned John Maxwell. He talks about failing forward. We will all fail along the way. Things will not turn out. And I think it's part of our molding that God takes us and allows us to go through these seasons, because through that we grow. The tougher the time, the more on my knees I am. When it's going well, tomorrow I'll find time to have quiet time. But right now I'm going for it. And I want to say to you, through the good and the tough times, we need to give thanks. I've got a little, one of my favorite verses is Deuteronomy 8, verse 17 and 18, and it says, "You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth. But remember the Lord your God, for it's He who gives you the ability to produce this wealth." In other words, I can say, well, I'm working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. That's why that's why I've got what I've got. That's why I can go on overseas holidays, and I've got a nice holiday house and a boat or whatever. Boy, oh boy, I better remember that I can walk out here and I can be flattened by a bus. I can find that I have cancer. I can find that something goes horribly wrong, and that I never forget that my health, my talents is God-given. And the stress that comes with going through tough times, how are you and I going to manage it? It's tough out there.
Sure. And it is a given that all of us will go through tough times. And I think for people in business, those tough times come more often. What practical examples can you give us, for keeping that balance, for really taking care of ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, other practical stuff that our listeners can do?
Yeah, let's start with the spiritual side. So I've said on more than one occasion that spending quiet time and blocking out time in your diary. And if you're sitting in the traffic each day for an hour going to work, switch off everything and just spend that as quiet time, or have something that you're listening to, a teaching or gospel music or whatever. That I think is part of just getting one's system just to unwind. The second aspect is our health, and I believe that it's critical that we need to exercise. Our forefathers used to be out there in the jungle, having to hunt and having to provide and so forth, and were active. The more we're getting into this modern world, we're sitting behind desks, and we're sitting behind computers, so we're sitting behind screens, and more need for us to get that exercise. So to me, that balance. And then of course, when it comes to the scenario of body, soul and mind, what am I reading? What am I doing with my quiet time? Am I just a TV couch potato that just goes and lies there and, eats some dribble, some biltong and nuts, and I spend hours in front of the television, and what am I learning? I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with watching a good movie or a good show or a good program. And the other thing is making sure that I'm active within my church, within my small group, within a grouping, that I can keep that fire going. Because by others sharing with me, I'm learning from them, and vice versa. And by thinking that I can just do this all on my own. As they say, if you've got a fire with 10 pieces of wood, you take one piece of that log and you put it on its own. It was burning very strong there. Put it on its own, and boy, 5 minutes later, it's smoldering and it just fizzles out. We need that cross-pollination. We need that encouragement from one another.
Sure. One of my favorite words in the dictionary is probably intentionality.
Yes.
Because if being healthy is not going to happen by accident.
Yes.
Having good relationships is not going to happen by accident. Growing spiritually is not going to happen by accident. We need to be intentional about doing it.
Amen. A little example. So come the end of the year, it's Old Year's Eve, and we're going to a function, and your girlfriend or your spouse says to you, okay, so what's your New Year's resolution? Well, I want to lose weight, I want to get fit, I want to do this, If a day later I don't set my alarm for an hour earlier and get out there on my bicycle or on my gym or put on my running shoes, it's not going to happen by itself. Once you have set yourself a goal, that is when you've got to action that which you've committed to do.
Wow. Thank you so much, Graham. This is so good. And may all of us listening on this session really decide, may we resolve in our hearts that we'll become intentional about keeping good balance between our spiritual life, physical life, and our entire holistic well-being.
Amen.
Come on, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for listening in. See you on our next session here at Amplify.